to our very first virtual Prescription Drug Abuse Task Force quarterly meeting. This is a first for us. My name is Marla Kincaid, and I'm the facilitator at PDATF. And I'd like to introduce my partner here.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Joe Eberstein. I am co-workers with Marla, and I'm also the program manager for the County Marijuana Prevention Initiative.
So again, welcome, and thank you for being here. I hope everybody's safe and healthy. You know, traditionally, before a quarterly meeting, we all arrive about 30 minutes early, and we all say hello, and we all network. And at 9 o'clock, we go around the room, and all 80 plus attendees introduce themselves and identify the agency that they work with. And every time that happens, I am always amazed and in awe over the expertise and the diversity within PDATF. And you guys have done great work, and even during this epidemic, you continue to do great work. And I'm really looking forward to what we're going to continue to do in the future. We've got a really good meeting lined up for you today, and I will do announcements in a minute. You all know I have to do announcements at the beginning or I forget them at the end. But before I do that, I'd like to introduce our two co-chairs, Linda Bridgman-Smith with Behavioral Health Services Prevention, and Cindy Cipriani with the U.S. Attorney's Office. Linda?
Thanks, Marla, and thank you for arranging all of this. It's kind of weird. It's definitely kind of weird. I'm missing those poppy seed muffins and coffee, but coffee I have in abundance. No poppy seed muffins. We're really excited about today's presentation. And really glad that in light of the changing situation that we have the ability to actually continue business and even be really innovative about how we do it. So it's really an extraordinary time and a cool kind of time for all of us to be in. And Marla asked me to do some words of wisdom. Sorry, y'all, that's all I've got. And I'm going to kick it to my co-chair and good friend, Cindy Cipriani.
I've been pleasantly surprised at how connected we can all remain and how much information, love and laughter can get shared, in these virtual sessions. So thank you all for coming. I think that, being in a lockdown, we know that stress goes up and people with substance use disorder are especially challenged. And so I want to thank you all for the important and essential work you're continuing to do during the lockdown. I'm really looking forward to this presentation. I've been hearing about what the county's been doing with regard to the prevention campaign and the messaging campaign. And it's something that I think we all really need. And this is an evidence-based campaign that I think is going to bring great things. So I'm excited to see it. I'm super excited to have Renee back. We'll be hearing from her in a minute. And I look forward to hearing from all of you, hearing your questions. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Cindy. So thank you, Linda. So just a few announcements before we get to our great presentations. Our Safe Disposal Committee has created a safe disposal survey. So please be on the lookout for the results of the survey shortly. Our prevention committee is working on Overdose Awareness Day, which is August 31st. And so again, stay tuned for the good work that the prevention committee is working on. And then thirdly, our healthcare task force has been working on referral cards, both for MAT and benzos, and those will be out shortly. So we will introduce those probably at future meetings. Our next PDATF quarterly meeting will be another first. We will be combining our quarterly meeting with the Mass Strike Force. And together, we're going to review both report cards, both the PDATF and the Mass Strike Force report cards. And please mark your calendars for Friday, August 21st. And we'll see how this meeting goes, whether it will be virtual. Most likely it will be a virtual meeting. And as Cindy mentioned, like her, like all of us, we're really excited for our presentation with Steve Walker at the DA's office. And in order to introduce Steve, I'd like to introduce Terry Perez. She is the chief of the narcotics unit for the San Diego District Attorney's Office, a long-standing member of PDATF, and she is on our executive team. Terry?
Thank you, Marla. Good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to be here on behalf of our district attorney, Summer Steffen. and to present to all of you. And I believe it was last year that I spoke to all of you and talked about some of our goals within the district attorney's office. And one of them was to engage in an opioid campaign for education in light of all of the overdose deaths we were seeing due to fentanyl. So when we talked about doing that in our office, Steve Walker is the individual that really took the bull by the horns to get this project going. And he's been working very closely with the rescue agency. And in case you don't know who Steve Walker is, I'm honored to be able to introduce him. He is the communications director for the San Diego District Attorney's Office, and he's a special assistant to the district attorney. He oversees all public and media relations for the DA's office, which is the second largest in the state of California. And prior to his PR career, Steve worked in television as a producer, reporter, and a host at local and national outlets, including NBC News, FX, and Home and Garden Television. His work earned him a Daytime Emmy Award, and he was honored by the San Diego Press Club for his coverage as an embedded journalist during the Iraq War. So he's quite an experienced individual, and we're so fortunate to have him in our office. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Steve Walker.
Well, thank you, Terry, and thank you to the task force and Marla for inviting me to be here. Really happy to share the details of this campaign with you. We're obviously really excited about it. At the DA's office, we like to say that our mission is sort of encapsulated by the 3 Ps, and that's obviously prosecuting criminals, but also preventing crime and protecting and supporting victims. So we do engage in several outreach campaigns, and this is one of the largest we've ever done. So I'm going to give you sort of a 30,000-foot view, and then I'm going to get down in some of the details, show you a couple of videos, and then open it up for questions at the end. Okay, hopefully everybody can see that.
Yes.
We do.
Okay, so Terry mentioned that, you know, we sat down with District Attorney Summer Stephan, and she was very clear that she wanted to do an outreach campaign centered around drug abuse. And obviously, there were a lot of directions we could go. We could, you know, target meth, we could target laced substances, and ultimately we decided that we would have sort of a directed, clear message around the opioid epidemic. And so the San Diego Opioid Project was born. And I don't have to tell any of you sort of how bad the issue is here in San Diego, but it was, again, of great concern to the DA, and so she directed us to move forward as quickly as possible with a large-scale campaign. So what we did was we contacted our friends at the Rescue Agency. And if you don't know, the Rescue Agency is a San Diego-based company. They have a track record of public health campaigns. They started out running anti-smoking campaigns for teenagers, and they've been very successful because they base their campaigns on research and data and focus groups, and they're really data-driven. And their goal when they do this outreach is really not just to create an awareness around an issue, but they really want to go further and actually change people's behaviors, which is sort of different and unique when it comes to the way outreach campaigns work. So we contacted them, we started working with them, and we got the ball rolling. We decided, and this was driven also by DA Summer Stephan, I don't know if you remember, we did a campaign called The Ugly Truth a couple of years ago that was aimed at human trafficking. And it was very important to us, this campaign not just last a month or even 2 months, but it be sort of an extended campaign. And that way the messaging would really soak into people and we'd have a better odds of actually changing people's behaviors. So we decided to have 3 phases of the campaign, and we started in February. And the scheduling goes that the campaign will be out in the community and up for 8 weeks. And then we have a 2-week break. And we do that to sort of let people have a breather from the messaging. And then we start back up again. Unfortunately, at the end, or in the middle, I guess, of our first phase, the pandemic hit. And so we finished up with our first phase at the end of March. And we talked about it, and we decided that it would be prudent to sort of pause the campaign. We really felt that the audience didn't want to hear any other messaging other than something COVID related. And this was a difficult decision for 2 reasons. One is we have a captive audience with everybody staying at home. So we thought, you know, it's a great time to reach people, but at the same time, if they're not ready to hear the messaging, it's not going to be effective. So we did pause it. We talked about it. We've reevaluated, and we decided to go back up on June 1st with our second phase. We'll run for 8 weeks. We'll take a 2-week pause, and then the third phase will run after that. So the first phase I'm going to sort of talk about, because ultimately all 3 phases have sort of all the same elements, but the first phase has been completed, so I'll kind of give you an overview of that. So the strategy was, sorry, try to minimize something here. The strategy was to let people know sort of a foundational knowledge about opioids and communicate the risks and dangers. And really the purpose, or the main goal message of the first phase was to create an awareness for people that opioids are just as bad as heroin is. And then there are some sub-messages that you'll see that carry through the campaign as well. But really we wanted to define for people what opioids really are. And so the big idea is, to my brain, opioids and heroin might as well be the same thing. And it bridges this gap that people had about opioid misuse. In the rescue agencies, focus groups, and interviews, they really determined that people didn't get it. They thought that they could safely use or abuse opioids, and they didn't understand that it's the same thing as heroin when it comes to the addiction and what it does to your body and just how dangerous it was. So we wanted to really create that awareness and that equality in people's brains about it. So there are sort of 3 basic parts or concepts. We've got our flagship video, which is a 30-second PSA. We called this first phase Rabbit Hole. And then there's paid social content, and then paid digital. So the paid social is things like Facebook and Instagram, and the paid digital is things like banner ads on websites that you might visit. And then all of this was driving people to our website landing page and talking about 7 facts everyone should know about opioids. So I mentioned the paid social. This is really used to reach people who are maybe getting bad information about opioids, and we're reaching this audience through Facebook and Instagram. The paid digital is programmatic, so if you visit a website, you see the banner ad across the top or down the side, or if you watch a YouTube video, you have to see that annoying sort of first video play before you can see the other one. Our website obviously contained resources and more information that helps drive our message home. And then paid search. So people who maybe are searching for addiction or opioids or pain management, they would get an ad from the San Diego Opioid Project. And the primary objective was really to raise awareness by reaching the audience on the channels that they spend time on. So if you think about it, some outreach campaigns, they just stick a billboard up somewhere and say, oh, I hope people see it. This is much more targeted, as you'll see, because we're really reaching the audience on the channels where they're spending time, whether that's certain specific websites, watching certain types of videos, or going to certain kind of Facebook groups or pages. This is kind of one of the more interesting slides, and I have to be honest, this is where I get a little bit out of my depth, and we really rely on the rescue agency for their advice. But the targeting is extremely specific. So we're targeting people based on their interests, first of all. So maybe they're interested in athletics, or they're interested in medicine. The second is behavior type targeting. Sorry, I'm trying to, my screen's partly covered up here. Trying to get it fixed. The third one is contextual, based on maybe if you're typing in again in Google certain keywords, you're going to get certain ads. Location-based targeting, people who've recently visited surgery centers or hospitals. And then one of the more interesting ones is, because Rescue Agency works in the sort of public health sphere, they have partners who have can compile this HIPAA compliant data. So someone who actually has gotten a prescription recently for opioids might see the ad, which I think is incredible that in this day and age we can do that, but still respect privacy rights. So how do we measure this? We measure it in 3 different ways. One is just what we call impressions. So let's say somebody just happened to see the campaign. That's just an impression. Engagement is somebody who actually maybe likes one of the videos or clicks through to the website, basically engages in some way. And then an active engagement goes one step further, where someone says, wow, this campaign is really great. I really want to share it with people, so they might share it on their page or send it to a friend. So I want to show you the first 30-second PSA that we put together, which again drives home this message. You'll see that opioids are just as bad as heroin.
If you take prescription opioids like Vicodin or Percocet to party, it may not look like much on the outside, but serious damage is happening on the inside. Everyone's brain has receptors that regulate both pain and emotion. Opioids attach to these receptors just like heroin does, and create the same type of addiction because chemically, they're almost exactly the same. So no matter if it's a prescription opioid or heroin, they're both seriously dangerous drugs. Learn the risks of prescription opioids at SanDiegoOpioidProject.org.
So you can see it's a very specific, simple message that we're trying to deliver to people. And in addition to the 30-second video, we created shorter ones because younger people and me have short attention spans sometimes too. So I'll show you the shorter ones real quick too.
Everyone's brain has receptors that regulate both pain and emotion. Opioids attach to these receptors just like heroin does, and create the same type of addiction because chemically, they're almost exactly the same. Learn the risks of prescription opioids.
So these shorter ones might be, as I mentioned, like the YouTube videos that you might have to watch something before. So the shorter ones kind of work better for that.
Opioids attach to brain receptors just like heroin. Learn the risks at SanDiegoOpioidProject.org.
So I'm just going to click through some of what you would see on Facebook or Instagram, and then some of the digital ads too, to talk about sort of the other messaging that we start to get into. We in PR, we love to use numbers. So you'll see like sort of clickbait that says the 3 foods you should never eat, or the 5 things that, you know, help protect your home or health or whatever. So that's kind of the idea behind this messaging, you know, the 7 things that everybody should know about opioids. And we, again, are driving people to the website so that they can engage a little further. And then there's a resource page. The other thing we wanted to do is explain to people, because they may not realize that, you know, OxyContin is an opioid or codeine or whatever. So we wanted to introduce those brand names to people so that they understand that these are all the same things we're talking about. The other messaging that as we start to get in these other tiered messages was that the longer you use opioids, the less effective they become. And you're going to need more the longer that you use them. The data that Rescue brought to us said that people didn't get that. They thought that, you know, it's just the effectiveness was always going to be the same. We wanted to sort of explain, no, that's how your addiction gets out of hand, because the more you use, the more you need, and the longer you use. And then this is sort of an example of what would be an animated post on Facebook or Instagram that also addresses a misconception that people think if they take opioids, it's going to heal them. And it's not true, of course. It's just masking the pain. They don't fix injuries. The other sort of B-tiered message we wanted to talk about was what happens when you mix alcohol with opioids and the dangers of that. So we have these Facebook and Instagram ads that talk about what happens when alcohol enters your system, and it magnifies the effect and could also cause an overdose. You probably have noticed we haven't really talked about overdose too much in this first phase of the campaign. It's really just a foundational thing about creating this awareness that it's just as bad as heroin. So this does sort of edge into that territory. We wanted to make it, localize it a little bit. So we have this statistic about the number of deaths in San Diego County. Again, check out our 7 facts about prescription opioids everyone needs to know, driving people to the website. And then this is another animated post that you would see on Facebook, in a visual way, sort of showing the wiring diagram that everything comes from the poppy plant. They're all the same thing. This is an example of a static banner ad. So again, when you visit some kind of website, you'll see it across the top, down the side, that sort of thing. And I guess this is a good time to mention that we really wanted to make sure that this campaign had some diversity in it. So this is the first time you're seeing a human face in the campaign, and there are several human faces, and they are definitely represent the diversity in San Diego. And it's interesting, again, from a PR perspective, generally people look at stuff that has people's faces in it more. So we wanted to make sure that that was an element of the campaign. So here's an animated banner ad. Again, sending people to the website. Another one, 7 facts about opioids, find out more. Very clear messaging, as you can see. And then these are, again, more Facebook and Instagram posts, and that were boosted. Again, mixing the alcohol. Drawing the link between heroin and opioids. And then again, they're all the same thing. So this is, it's not a great representation of our website, but it's how the website is laid out. It's basically one big page that people can jump down and scroll through. And at the very top is that flagship video that we want people to watch. The website, we also stood one up in Spanish, thought that was very important. I'll talk about that in a second. And then there's a resources page, which actually links to you guys, Prescription Drug Abuse Task Force, for resources. And then also on the DA's website, we stood up a very short little page that links to the project and also the task force. So I mentioned Spanish language. We actually spent about a little under 1/3 of our budget targeting the Hispanic or Latinx community in San Diego. We thought it was really important because obviously the opioid epidemic affects everybody. And so we wanted to definitely reach that audience. In addition to what Rescue is doing, the DA's office is working. Oh, I forgot maybe one of the biggest things. We're working on this campaign with HHSA. They are our partner and we love them. And thank you, HHSA, for being supportive and being a partner in this. So we came to them a little late after the conceptual stuff was done, but Director Machione stepped up and they're basically co-funding the campaign with us and supporting it on social media as well. So on the DA side, we decided to make it more of a traditional TV buy because you could see everything so far that Rescue has done is digital, all online, all social media, that sort of thing. So we wanted to do a more traditional TV buy. So we did so on several cable networks, and our buy coincides with the 8-week cycles that run on digital. We also made a Spanish language buy, of course, on Univision. And then we're working with HHSA and our other agency partners to really amplify the campaign on Facebook and Instagram, YouTube, that sort of thing. We held a news conference on the 20th, and until the pandemic was hitting, we had scheduled several town hall meetings in different areas of the county to allow us to push our message out a little further and get sort of a back and forth dialogue with people. We held one of those in South Bay, and we're considering how we're going to move forward probably in a Zoom situation like this, because we definitely think it's important to continue the conversation with the community and have that two-way communication as well. So the results, or what we call key performance indicators in the business. So far, just the rescue agency's side of the campaign, the digital, social, and online, we had more than 12 million impressions. So in a county of 3.5 million, we were super pleased with that. And that an impression just basically means somebody saw the campaign that many times. Our key audience was 18 to 40. I fully realize that teenagers abuse opioids and older people do too, but we ended up in this sort of sweet spot, again, sort of in a very targeted way. And I'm pleased to say that we reached 97% of that key audience in the county, which is an incredible reach. And nearly 2 million people actively engage. So if you remember back to that slide where either you see it and that's an impression, or you actually engage, you like it or share it or whatever. So 2 million people, that's incredible. That's obviously, we're reaching people and having an effect more than just having them see it. And then that flagship video, which we wanted everybody to see, about 1.5 million people watched the entire video. So in the world of PR, that's a huge win for us. The other thing I should probably mention is the website. When people did visit the website, they stayed on it an average of 25 seconds, which may not sound like a lot, but again, in our world of measurement, like if you think about it, when you land on a website, you're searching around Google, if you aren't really that interested, you're going to stay on there for 5 seconds or so. So 25 seconds is, again, a big win for us. Our TV buy, our English buy, reached 75% of all households in the county, and we had 3 million impressions. The folks who measure these metrics tell us that the stay-at-home order definitely delivered a larger reach. So that is one sort of unintended good consequence of what's going on. And then Spanish language, the media buy, it makes sense to us that our impressions were lower because it was a smaller buy. But the good thing is that the people who did see it saw the ad at least 2 times or more. The real goal, though, and the real key performance indicator for us is obviously, are we changing people's behaviors? Are we saving lives? Are we going to see a decrease in overdoses and OD deaths? And just this week on Wednesday, this ODMAP study came out in 6 states showing, unfortunately, that in the past 2 months, we're seeing overdoses go up. And the ME, you guys are probably fully aware, these aren't concrete numbers. Dr. Kamen gave these to Terry, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, but it's looking like we're on track to double the amount of fentanyl deaths from last year. So it's not great news. Another good reason why we're very excited to start the campaign up again in June. So when we do that, it's going to be phase 2, and you guys are about to see an exclusive preview of our flagship video for phase 2. And basically, we've now moved our messaging on beyond this foundational thing of opioids are just as bad as heroin to our next message, which is overdoses can go unnoticed, and how alcohol affects opioids and how someone can overdose sort of right under your nose. So this is the second video that we'll be pushing out.
The signs of opioid overdose are hard to notice. If you pop an Oxy or Perk while drinking, the mixture can make you drowsy, slow your breathing, and lead to organ failure. But those changes are so subtle, they can be easily overlooked. Because the truth is, overdosing on prescription pain pills looks similar to sleeping. So no one knows to help. Learn more to prevent another opioid overdose.
So you can see we're creating this very visual, and it's much different than the first flagship video, which was all animated. Now we're putting people in real life situations that hopefully will resonate with people who are in those kinds of situations, and showing just how dangerous it can be and how quickly things can go downhill. And then it has a little bit of a scare tactic at the end there, just educating people about how often this does happen in San Diego County. So that is an overview of, sorry, my cursor isn't working, of our project. I hope I did it justice. I'll be honest, part of my screen was covered up the whole time with part of the Zoom meeting, so I couldn't read some of it, but hopefully you got a good feel for the campaign and what we're trying to accomplish. So I'm gonna send it back to my colleague, Terry Perez now.
Thank you, Steve. What a wonderful presentation. The campaign is amazing, and we were all really delighted with the results. A number of people that are being reached and the messaging. And Steve gave you a preview of the second phase, but I think the third phase is going to be even more impactful. So we're all looking forward to seeing that. So thank you very much, Steve. And as far as my presentation today, I'm just going to give an update on an event that I talked to you about at the last few meetings, and it's the Juvenile Opioid Summit. And we had originally planned to do it at the sports arena and have between 11,000 and 14,000 middle school and high school kids in attendance. But with COVID, we can't rely on having that opportunity to be together in a crowd like that. So we've decided to take this event and make it a remote event where the event's going to be live streamed. And we've spoken to our keynote speaker, who is Chris Herron, a recovered heroin addict who played for the Boston Celtics, and just really gives a powerful message when he speaks to kids at various schools. He did a production called The First Day. It was live last night, and I had the opportunity to sit and watch that. I don't know if any of you saw that, but he also had a question and answer period afterwards, and he's just such a dynamic speaker that really connects well with kids. So in addition to having Chris Herron at that event, we have Joanna Jacobus, who I believe many of you are familiar with, a professor at UCSD, who's going to be talking about addiction and marijuana and the impact on adolescent brains, as well as vaping and how that impacts kids. So she's going to really gear her speech towards young people, with the understanding that young people have very short attention spans, as Steve alluded to. And I think if we can have her speak for about 10 or 15 minutes, that'll be just wonderful and educational for the kids. Sherry Rubin and her son Aaron will be presenting as well, which we all know and love here at PDATF. And we know that she has the ability to touch a lot of kids with her story. We have the Padres on board. We don't know who the players are going to be at this point. We're hoping, I've asked for Fernando Tatis. I don't know if I'll get him, either him or Machado, somebody that can connect well with kids and just send a strong message about living. Natural High is also reaching out to some celebrity speakers and musicians, because it's really going to be a fun production with some serious and educational components. And being able to do this remotely allows us to reach out to every school, every high school within the county of San Diego, and that includes, I believe, 43 school districts. So by doing this remotely and live streaming the event, we're going to be able to reach out to so many more kids, and also including middle schools. So the event is going to be December 15th. We're right now looking at various high schools that we have to have certain technical abilities, so it's got to be a newer school. And I've been told that Patrick Henry has an amazing auditorium. So we've reached out to them. We'd like to do a site visit. We're also working with various live streaming companies to try to get bids right now. We have 3 bids. That there's quite a variance between the numbers and what they can do for us, but we're hoping that they can have a secure ability to log in so that each school can have their own password, because we want to protect the event, to protect Mr. Herron. And this is his, he makes a living doing these speeches. And so he's agreed to live stream it with certain conditions. But he's excited about this event. We think this is going to be amazing. There's a lot of parts to put together currently, but we have so many partners on our team. We're working with the U.S. Attorney's Office, CADFI, PDATF, Sherry Rubin, the Hazelton Betty Ford Foundation, Sequan, Padres, Scott Silverman, San Diego County Office of Education, Natural High, DEA, Say San Diego, Bob Elliott. So we've got, and I hope I haven't left anybody out, but we've got wonderful partners to help us with this project, and we will give you more updates as we get further along. So that's all I have. Thank you so much again, Steve, and for all of you for tuning in. Oh, at this point, we're going to open it up for questions. So if anybody has any questions, you can submit them through the Q&A. I believe that all of the panelists should be able to see those questions.
There is one. I don't know if the attendees can see it, but one of the questions on deck is, unfortunately, the COVID-19 pandemic is deeply aggravating the opioid epidemic. Overdose rates are elevated nationwide, and emergency legislation has been passed to help folks access treatment. Have San Diego County MAT providers adopted some of these emergency measures, i.e. video conferencing for those in treatment, increasing MAT prescription time length, take-home packs, etc. On behalf of behavioral health, I would like to answer that. And as most of you who are on this Zoom meeting are aware, San Diego County implemented the organized delivery system Drug Medi-Cal in the summer of 2018, and that extended MAT treatment in San Diego County. And so, yes, as a result of the COVID-19, our providers are actively using telehealth, and they are practicing really enhanced cleaning procedures, social distancing, following all of the Centers for Disease Control recommendations and the local health orders in the delivery of treatment services. But it's imperative that folks who are in treatment are able to continue their treatment services. And thankfully, just like we're all there, and there are, counting the panelists, we have 94 people on today, which is really pretty awesome. And the ability to have a Zoom meeting and to use Zoom in the delivery of drug treatment services via the telehealth platform is really terrific. So behavioral health is pleased that that is working in San Diego County.
Thank you, Linda. Wonderful response, and the county has done a remarkable job. Ronit, do you want to also answer that question a little bit from Scripps Mercy and the emergency room section, not as it relates necessarily to MAT treatment, but the referral to MAT and what you're doing?
Pleasure to join everybody. I had a hiatus for about 19 months, serving as the first Chief Medical Officer at the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy. It's been an incredible experience. And I really have to thank a lot of the people here who got me started and got me to have that opportunity. I had a long list of things that I was hoping to accomplish. I got about a third of them done, a third are in the works, and a third didn't move. But then I was introduced to amazingly other experiences and projects early March, because I was still commuting back and forth and seeing patients in the emergency department. I was asked to start telecommuting and not endanger the White House with COVID. So I was telecommuting since then until May 1st, and then I've been here. And really, as soon as the pandemic hit in San Diego, I've been working here full time, where I need to be and where I belong. Like all of you, it was a scary experience. I definitely felt like a soldier, doing my duty, not knowing what to expect and learning a new disease. And we geared up with tents and expected, the tsunami of patients to come, and they didn't come. What we had in the emergency department is our steady flow of people with alcohol poisoning and mental health issues. Those never stopped. The medical cases ceased for a while, and we're slowly starting to see them back. And as I was gearing up with PAPRs to do intubations, that was like this scary thing to do. You're wearing like a hood, you can't hear anything. And it wasn't a COVID patient, it was a fentanyl overdose. And every shift now, I'm seeing a fentanyl overdose. And I'm really thanking Terry for the connection with the San Diego Team 10. I call them the hot team, but they're Team 10, that respond and save people. And I really want to get this across throughout San Diego, because we're seeing this on a regular basis. Because I'm testing, I see patients who are on meth, but if you check, they also have fentanyl, or agitated delirium, and they also have fentanyl. So we could think about the one patient in front of us, or I like to think of overdoses like any other infectious disease, such as COVID. We do contact tracing for COVID. We should be doing contact tracing for these overdoses, not just saving the one person, but there's a whole bunch of people that they were with or they bought that product with, and that's killing people. And they don't mean to die. These are not people who, you know, they didn't know that they were fentanyl in there. So that is really what's inundating the emergency departments now. Issues of drugs and mental health, that does not stop. It's only increased during the pandemic. As far as the question is, what are we doing with MAT? At the very beginning, I realized that what we're doing is backwards. We were sending people to the COVID zone to get induction with MAT with Suboxone. And at the time, I was still working at ONDCP and said, we can't send people to an infectious area to get induced with Suboxone if they're having withdrawals. And so we actually started telehealth from the emergency department, and trying not to get those patients inside the COVID zone, as I call it, if that's all that they needed. So we set that up, and we are extending times of prescription for a week, and hopefully getting people connected to treatment within 24 hours. It's taking a week. I had a patient the other day who woke up from after a few doses of naloxone, and he really broke my heart. I still think about him because I don't know if he got the help that he needed. All the county beds were full for detox. He really wanted inpatient. There was nothing available for him. I was able to connect him with an appointment for a week, which is not what I really wanted to. Give him a prescription for naloxone and give him some Suboxone, and I still think about what this kid is and where he's at. But we're seeing that a lot throughout the county. So what you're doing is so important, all of you. I really thank you for your advocacy. Continue doing that. It's so important. Our problem is only getting worse, and by getting together and the creative thinking that San Diego has, I'm just so proud of San Diego and all of you. Probably not a day went by that I wasn't talking in DC about, well, San Diego does this and San Diego does that, and really showing off all the projects and wonderful work that you all do. I'm very proud of you, and happy and honored to be back and pitch in where I can.
Thank you, Dr. Lev. I think the San Diego Opioid Project is an example of the great work that San Diego County does.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So there are other questions that I see as panelists. If you could please read over the questions, and if there's a question that's specific to your expertise, if you could respond to that question for me, please. Is the Opioid Project in another language? Steve, would you like to answer that one?
Right now, it's only in English and Spanish. There have been discussions, because certainly we would like to reach other audiences, about potentially, extending the campaign in some way and repurposing some of the assets and doing some translations. So I think that's something we definitely are thinking about doing. But right now, we just didn't have the bandwidth or the budget to go beyond English and Spanish.
Thank you, Steve. So it sounds like all the questions have been answered, and I want to thank our panelists. I want to thank our co-chairs, Steve, for a wonderful presentation. Thank you for taking the time to be here. We know how busy you are, and Terry for the update on the Juvenile Opioid Summit. We've got a lot of great stuff going on in San Diego County, and I look forward to seeing all of you at our August 21st meeting. Again, mark your calendar. It will be a first joint meeting with the Meth Strike Force, and as Steve alluded to, we're going to look at these new data, the deaths and what's going on, and we'll have an opportunity collectively, all of us in all of our areas of expertise, to review and look at that data and see what we can do to move forward on projects and procedures in the future. So with that, thank you very much for attending and participating. Be safe, take care, and we'll see you on August 21st. Bye-bye.